Hello, this is the Commercial Landscaper Podcast with Robert Clinkenbeard. This show will transform your leadership by developing all areas of your life, business, family, personal, and health. Only by fine-tuning yourself will you truly operate at a highly functioning leader. Super excited today to announce that we're just surpassed the 100th edition of the Commercial Landscaper Show. And we're going to see better things from us this year. We're going to be introducing some education, courses in leadership and sales that you could apply and join and try to improve yourself. So hopefully you can join us in some of these courses and reach out if you want to hear some new guests. This is all about bettering you, bettering your business, and make you function at a super high level. Thanks again, everyone. Cheers. Hi, this is Robert Clinkenbeard with the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. I'm super excited today to be joined by Jim McCutcheon. Jim, I've seen you at a few events recently. I didn't really know a great deal about you before, but I've really enjoyed our time together recently. So thanks for joining me today.
No, my pleasure. I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of catch up with you and the rest of the industry as well.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Jim, I've probably got maybe about 5,000+ listeners and followers. A lot of people even in Europe and Australia. So I'd love, for them to hear a little bit about your background and what you've done for the industry over the years.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, so I've been in the industry now for a little over 30 years. I've had my company for a little over 32, 33 years, somewhere in that neighborhood. I was trained as a landscape architect, but I was never that good of a landscape architect. I was a better businessman. So
Okay.
I kind of refer to myself as a reformed landscape architect now, so I can make fun of those guys too. So, started working for a commercial apartment development company. And they had a landscape company, and they asked us to form one that would do work for people other than them. And the name of that company was Post Properties. And we ultimately did that and built that up. And then two partners and I, in 2001, bought the company and took it private, and started, and at that time created HighGrove Partners. And we started running it and built it into a full commercial company. We dabbled in residential, as a lot of people do, think they can actually do both, right. And learn very quickly it's two different worlds.
Yep.
So we've built it, and over that period of time, I've bought out both of those partners, and so it is just me in the ownership. And today we are a full commercial company. Probably 3/4 of our revenue is commercial landscape maintenance. The rest of that is our enhancements and irrigation and so forth. But even our enhancements, probably 80 to 90% of our enhancements are geared towards our commercial clients that we already have in place. So very much like that model. It's kind of a non-sexy model. I love recurring revenue. I love it in good times and in bad times. It's a better way to live.
No, more for sure. It reminds me of my company, and that enhancements piece is nice. And one of the things I was commenting when we were going back and forward was the your signature on your email, which was pretty impressive. So tell the audience about that. I mean, it's
yes.
huge to have that as one of your flagship properties.
Yeah, so the Atlanta Braves have been a customer for, probably 12 to 15 years now. And so we are now on the second stadium with them. And so we are the official landscaper of the Braves. And so everything landscaping related we do except for that field. I'm not about to touch that field on any given night. But we help them with everything else, and certainly everything, the grounds around the property, and the new mixed use development around it. So it's a great signature piece for us, for sure.
No, yeah, I remember we actually did the Arizona Cardinals Stadium, and one of the challenges we had, and it touches on your point, about residentials. We were doing a really good job at the stadium, but it was all the players, the owners, all wanted us to go in and do their houses, and it was just a hard thing to say no to, because obviously they've got some nice houses there, some nice landscaping, but it was tough to say no to that piece.
It is, but one of the things I always talk about is for people to actually have the courage to build the company that they want. And I believe at your very soul, the very soul of your company, you are either a commercial company or you're a residential company. And neither one of those is wrong. It's just what you're about and who you're about. I also believe at your very soul, you're either a construction company or a maintenance company. Doesn't mean you can't do both, but trying to mix residential and commercial is extremely difficult to do that and to do it well. There's a lot of people that do it and do one of them pretty well and the other one not so well.
Right, that was so true. Now, you touched on, you've gone through different stages of your company, growing it, buying out partners. Going through that journey, what have been some of the pivotal moments or some of the people that or associations or groups that have helped you make some of those challenging decisions?
I'm going to tell you, I still remember this night and I still talk about it at our company retreat that we do every year. We take about 60 of our folks and do our retreat. And we hadn't been able to do it for the last couple of years because of the pandemic. And so this year I did a history presentation for a lot of the newer people that were there. But one of the things I remember is many, many years ago, celebrating the fact that we had sold $10 million worth of design build. And it was a big deal and we were excited about it. And we had, at that time, we had about 10 million design build and less than $1 million in maintenance. And I remember driving home that night and I pulled in my driveway and I sat there for a second and went, uh-oh, I got to do that again next year. And more importantly, I got to do more than that next year. And so I realized that, when downturns come, when everything else, this is not a healthy way to live. And so I committed to myself and to my partners and to the company that I was going to begin to change that. And so we effectively began to not worry about the overall top line, but kind of shifting into more of the maintenance side of it, and then allowing us to be choosier on the design build side. To get better margins, to get better work, to get things that would ultimately lead to maintenance and that kind of thing. So that was a big fundamental shift for us. And that was a scary time. I mean, we had a lot of design build people in the company that looked at me and thought I was crazy. And some of those people left, but that's okay. Ultimately we had to build the company that we wanted.
Yeah, that must have been tough though, because you spent all your time building out that brand, that reputation. And well, sounds like a lot of revenue associated with that design build piece, but then to have that that light bulb moment and make that shift to then, as you say, getting pickier, and that must have been really challenging, and it must have been tough to either tell your clients or share that with your team members and still show them that that positivity out of that communication with your employees.
Yeah, no question. And I mean, look, that shift was going to happen regardless, whether or not I did it or whether or not the marketplace did it to us. And so I'd rather do it on my timeline and do it in the proper way. And a lot of people in the company, I shifted to different locations within the company, still with me today, doing different types of work. Other people, I actually help them land at other companies that kind of match their picture. But it also takes a lot of guts to stick with it, because I can tell you when the Braves built their new stadium and the mixed use development around it, I mean, there was millions of dollars worth of design build work. And I told a long-time customer that I'm going to be there with you. I'm going to help you work through this, but I am not going to install any of this. I'm not going to build it for you, but I'll be there in the end to help you on the maintenance side of it and this and the other. And so that was 7 years ago, I think now.
Right.
And so, we stuck with who we are and still have that work.
Yeah, and as I say, that's definitely tough doing that, and obviously it's taken, I suppose, your wisdom and years of experience to have that confidence to have those tough conversations.
Yeah.
I can see you chuckling.
Yeah, make
there.
you a little nervous at times too.
So, switching now to us moving forward, we've obviously gone through some really challenging times over the last 2.5 years with everything's been thrown at us, including the kitchen sink, it feels like. But we had COVID, we had still dealing with supply chain issues, price increases, not only in labor but also materials. We've also got shortage of labor. I mean, again, you hear so many people talking about the owner being on that island, and they have to put on this brave face, and they're supposed to go into the company and they're supposed to lead the team. But many owners I come across and coach, they're also dealing with these times I've never experienced. In fact, nobody's probably dealt with everything that's been thrown at us. How do you, I suppose, put on that brave face and pick the information you want to lead your company effectively and provide that confidence where you're going?
So one thing that I've always kind of lived my life by, that I've taught my children about, and I've taught everybody in our company. You ever heard of the Stockdale paradox?
Love it.
Love it. Yeah. So it is, again, that idea that no matter what's happening, I'm going to get to my goals ultimately. It might take me a little bit longer. It might be a little bit harder. It might be whatever it is, but I can't lose faith that I'm going to get there. At the same time, I have to face the brutal facts of my situation at that time and have the courage to be able to address and deal with those. So, as we look at the pandemic and so forth, goodness, I mean, nobody in the world knew what was going to happen with that. But I was speaking via video to our people every single day, and talking to them about kind of, here's what's happening. Here's some of the things we're faced with. Here's some of the things we might have to do. Some incredible ideas came from our folks, just simple things to kind of help us kind of get through. We, even just the simple, somebody decided we should have a video happy hour. And so we started doing that every other week. And, but I was very proud of the fact that we didn't lose a single person and nobody got their pay cut during that period of time. And we continued to maintain our company. So I guess it's just this understanding that it's not always going to be great and it's not always going to be bad. And it's, the bad days are not nearly as bad as they seem. And the good days, well, you got to take those in context as well, because tomorrow might be different. And you just never lose faith in where you're going.
No, that's so true. Yeah, it was actually interesting. I was talking to Vern Harnish, does scaling up and Rockefeller habits. And, one of the big messages that came from him was, companies come away and they say, well, I can't deal with all the business coming in. I don't have time for things. So therefore, I need to cancel my meetings. I need to stop communicating with my employees. And I think it's almost the opposite. You almost need to communicate more with them, be more transparent with them, and just give them some confidence that you're steering the ship the right way.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's so true what you're saying.
Well, and I think too, one of the things I started doing years ago before the pandemic, we have multiple branches. We have 4 locations around the city, so it's hard to see everybody all the time. And but the idea of sending an email and this and the other, I mean, you got to do that sometimes, but it's hard to understand the context and the passion and the intensity behind something. So I started doing weekly video messages to the company. And it's, at that moment, there's no doubt that anybody's going to misconstrue what I'm saying. They can understand my tone. They can understand, my seriousness. I might be joking about it at times and this and the other, but I find it to be a much, much more effective way to communicate with everybody. It's kind of interesting when I do send those out, you walk around the office and all of a sudden you can hear the computers popping up with with your voice around them. But I do find that a better way to communicate with everybody.
No, I think the video is good because you can feel that tone. Emails or text messages can be construed in different ways. So I think that's great right there. So you talk about, retreats, you probably do some strategic planning with your team. We're coming up to that strategic planning season. A lot of those challenges we're still facing, for example, price increases, labor increases. I'm sure all those discussions are being had or are about to be had. How are you guiding through those conversations in terms of coming up with a strategy and how to present those increases with your clients? Because they're probably being hit by all the different vendors, all different ranges of price increases. So
yeah, no question. And I've always considered myself to be a lifelong learner. And so I read a lot. I read a lot of periodicals, read a lot of books, do that kind of thing. And my team does indeed. Yes, we do strategic planning actually twice a year. And, attend a lot of different things to learn from others what's happening. But really, when I was kind of reading through what's happening just worldwide, and going back to my customers and getting them to understand, we put together some pretty interesting graphics to explain things, but getting them to understand at the end of the day, no, we're not just the landscapers. We're real people with real issues, and we are there to help them, but we cannot help them without changes. So we have actually been through a very detailed and fundamental process over the last 2 years to raise prices. We raised prices last year. We are again raising prices this year. And in most cases, we're somewhere between 7 and 10% in each of those situations. And not every customer is capable of doing that, but we are also able to sit back and look at those customers and say, all right, well, if you can't handle that all this year, what can we do this year and next year as a guarantee? And just frankly, not apologizing for it, because it is legit. It's real. I had a funny situation happen with a customer. They always kind of think the landscapers are it's not a real business. I actually had a woman ask me one day if I had to pay taxes for my business. And so, yes, most of the time. But actually, I was with one of my great customers, and I said, "Listen, we got to talk about these price increases. We need to do this." And she said, "Oh yeah." She goes, "Look," she goes, "even the pest control guys now are raising prices." So I figured we've moved up now. We are just above the pest control rankings.
Still probably below janitorial, below security, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. But look, I mean, all of our clients are doing it with their clients. And so, you have to be willing to go in there and have that conversation, to be blunt, to share with them the details, and also have the courage if they say absolutely not, which I had in a couple of situations. And I said, thank you. I wish you the best. And they are no longer a client.
Yeah. How one of the things I discuss with a lot of my clients is, coming up with all the almost like a pitch, not necessarily a pitch sheet, but do some role playing around presenting those increases to clients. Because I was always encouraging my team members, hey, I don't want you to just send that email and then close your eyes and wait for the answer. I want you to go meet the clients. I want you to talk through the challenges you're having. And it was almost, I get that funny look, but we found a great deal of success in just role playing some of those scenarios with our clients to understand the objections, to be able to answer them effectively. What's your view on that type of preparation going into sort of budget type preparations?
So I'm very much a big believer in role playing. We do that in our sales meetings every week. One of the things that we do in our sales process in general is just we never walk in the door and start telling you about us. I mean, there are a lot of questions that we ask our clients beforehand, what their pain points are, what their goals are, all those kinds of things. And then we come back with, all right, well, here's who we are and here's how we can address those things with you. So the conversation as it relates to price increases is that and the other started going back to that to say, okay, when we first started working with you, you said these were your goals. These are the things that you were hoping to achieve with this property. Have those changed? And if they haven't, how do you feel we're doing to achieve those and this, that, and the other? Okay, well, fine. In order for us to continue to do that, we're going to have this because here are some of the challenges that we have. Here's what fuel is doing to us. Here's what labor is doing and this, that, and the other. And if you're not willing to make any adjustments with us, I'm going to have to make adjustments on the other side of that in order to, to be able to show up. And that's not going to help you achieve the goals. So it was just kind of going back to that starting point and reminding them that, yes, we have done a good job for you. We've helped you achieve those goals. And in order to do that going forward, this is what we have to do.
Yep, that makes sense. What's your viewpoints on, I'm sure somebody like the Atlanta Braves probably took you, a year, 2 years, 3 years to land. So you've taken that long time to get some of your big customers, but you've got these price increases. And what's your thoughts on going back and trying to work with a client based on maybe adjusting the scope of work to still work within the budget, still keep the client, because obviously you still want to be with that client once they come out of that financial challenge you're in?
Yeah, so certainly during the pandemic, we did that, and everybody was much more understandable. It's harder now to make scope changes when you've been in a place for a long time. I find the most important thing is to start early. If you're pretty sure you're going to have a price increase with that client, most of them are starting their budgeting season even earlier now than they used to before. Most of them are starting in late May and early June in that budgeting process. So we want to be talking to them before that and say, hey, kind of here's where we are. Here's what the process looks like, and try to help them with it. Most of them can deal with it if they can get it into their budget. It's typically when you come after the fact, when we've locked that down for the next year, that's when it gets really difficult for
No, I agree 100%. Are you experiencing any challenges on the design build side, the enhancement side around material price, not only pricing, but also just that availability? And how are those discussions going with their clients?
Yeah, so it used to be you'd give somebody an enhancement proposal, and oftentimes you'd sit on that thing forever, and then 6, 8, 9 months later they come back. Okay, yeah, now we're ready to do this. We've got a pretty strict number on it now. I think we are at 30 days, and it probably needs to be less. If this thing hasn't been signed off in 30 days, I can't guarantee this pricing, and I cannot guarantee availability. It's helped in many ways, just because we've been able to get people to probably make a decision quicker than they might normally do. But you also can't be afraid to go back to them after the fact and say, this is not what these cost anymore, and I can show you the difference. But there's just too much volatility, and we can't be the ones that carry all the risk in a situation. If it's a true partnership, we need to be working together. But the only way that works is if I'm communicating with you really well.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Jim, just coming close to wrapping up here, for those younger up and coming companies who maybe have been thinking about that switch across from design build to maintenance, or maybe they haven't addressed price increases or had those earlier conversations with their clients, what would be some words of wisdom that you would pass on to them, and just to make that jump? Because it can be, you can get into that fear zone, you can be uncomfortable making that transition. They're used to a certain revenue, they've certain lifestyle, they maybe got a family, and now they're thinking about making a switch. I mean, that's pretty daunting.
It is pretty daunting. And I think one of the things that drives far too many people in this industry is top line revenue. They view that to be the single greatest measurement of success. I was in one of the original peer groups, actually with Bruce, many years ago, and we were in that for about 10 years. There was a great friend of mine, has a great company in there, and he was a very large company. But there were some problems, and ultimately he lost that company. I often tell people, if you could take the landscape management top 150 or the lawn and landscape top 100, and you could reorder that list by bottom line profitability, it'd be a very different list. So, the fear of losing a job because I may lose some revenue, losing a job that's a loser for you, that you're not actually making any money on, is healthy. I fear that, particularly on the younger side, too many folks are worried about maintaining that top line revenue when they're in those situations. I have been up and down over the years. I've sold branches, built branches, changed, the focus of the company, and we've been focused all of that time on our bottom line profitability, which drives, our ability to help our people, our ability to keep the company healthy, and the ability to take care of clients. So just have the courage to build the company that you want. And if you want to go in the commercial direction, analyze each and every one of your customers and decide, is this the kind of customer I want to have going forward? There's always that short list of the, shall we say, the a-hole customers.
I don't know what you mean, Jim. I have no idea what you mean.
Those are real easy, and damn, that feels good when you make that phone call to those people and tell them they're done.
And then your employees cheer you when you get back to the office.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So,
no, I agree. I mean, I'm a big fan of Greg Crabtree, who wrote a book called Simple Numbers, and he talks about that, almost building your budget backwards. Starting off with that 10+% net profit, and then building your budget, up from there. And especially when we talked earlier about labor challenges and increases, that if you're already struggling for labor, then why not look at the clients that are either not paying you enough, or the ones that are giving grief, and look at those first, so that you can actually spend the time and effort and attention to the clients that are taking care of you, that do value as true partners.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to be happier in the long run and healthier.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Jim, I really appreciate your time today. If people want to get in touch with you, just find out a little bit more about you, your company, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Really, I guess probably my email is just jim.McCutcheon. It's McCutcheon at HighGrove, HighGrove.net. I'm there all the time.
Cool. Jim, really appreciate your time today. Thank you. I know you're a busy guy, and thanks for your wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely.
And your service to the industry.
I appreciate it. A lot of good friends with that, and I really appreciate everything that you guys are doing for this industry as well, and I appreciate this opportunity.
Cool. Okay. Thank you. Take care, Jim.
Okay.
That was the Commercial Landscaper podcast, hosted by Robert Clinkenbeard, and I'm the author of the Ironman Mindset for Entrepreneurs. If you want to find out more about the show, you're welcome to go to thecommerciallandscaper.com, or if you want to learn more about courses, education, buying some books, even if you want to just drop a note and suggest a guest, I'd love to hear from you. Again, this is Robert Clinkenbeard, the Commercial Landscaper podcast. Cheers, everyone.